Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Emunah Yisrael, Solonomics 101. Missing in action. I know you probably like, man, I haven't seen that sister's face in a while. You know what? I had to take some of my own advice. I've been around, but I've just been quiet because there's a time to speak and then there's a time to be quiet. There's a time for action and then there's a time for thought. And I had to go into a little bit of action mode because, time got crazy and wild and all kind of news stories and this happening and that happening. And when that happens, I gotta align. I gotta get quiet. But today, funny enough, and every day I was saying, nah, I don't want to talk. I don't want to say nothing. But today, my spirit told me, get up, put your clothes on. And I'm thinking as I'm moving around, like, what am I talking about? I'm like, I don't know. And more than one time, I'm like, oh, my cell phone is not ready yet. Let me plug it in. I'm just giving you guys a backstory because I've been gone for a little bit, although I've still been here. I've just been quiet, like I said. And then I said, now let me just wait. And then I plugged in the cell phone because it was a little, I was going to live stream. Anyway, long story short, boom, up pops what I needed to speak about today. And it had totally slipped my mind and went off my radar. But when I saw it posted, again, for those who don't know, I've been doing the Lev Project from the beginning of the year. It was supposed to be a collective measure of us reading collectively. It really turned out to me reading a lot to the collective population. And that's all good. But after a while, a lot of the stories as you're reading, they're so heavy, you have to have time to diffuse. So if you're wondering why, like, what moves you want to have on, it's all my crochet. I have been crocheting a lot. So when I got quiet, I was diffusing a lot of those thoughts and feelings and emotions because you have to find something positive to do. Painting, singing, fishing. You got to find something to do to balance yourself so that you could come back centered and that you don't kind of transfer the energy, because I've been reading since January. Now we're in August, and by the way, Lev Project is going back on top. Like I said, I've been off for a couple of weeks anyway. So as the title states, it's slave. And they're like, this sister is always talking about slavery. Again, I gave you a break. You understand what I'm saying? But in my estimation, this is coming from, a lot of what we're experiencing is coming from this trauma. So I'm going to read you a little bit about the International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. By the way, again, our entire history is not slavery, as people like to say. We were other things in other spaces amongst other nations that we used to live. But this is the collective trauma. If you were from what is today Nigeria, if you're from Ghana, if you were from the Ivory Coast, the Gold Coast, wherever you were from, you had different cultures, you had different ideologies oftentimes, even though many people were on the same continent. The collective trauma is what is shared. And this is why for me, and now before I get into it, I know y'all haven't heard me in a while, so I'm going to talk a little bit. Before I get into it, people be like, oh, that was a long time ago. Why don't you get over it? And it's over now and blah, blah, blah. But it's funny how it keeps popping up. It's that thing that you don't ever want to talk about, but it keeps popping up. So in my estimation, during my studies, in the beginning of my studies and continuing in my studies, the collective trauma is what we share. There are even some narratives that say that, and I think I said this before, that the ship captains often fed slaves from different places their food that they were accustomed to eating. And so I thought that was interesting because everybody keeps saying we're the same people. But there were some people who ate rice because they were from a certain place, and there were others who ate yam. And sometimes on the ships, they would feed those people the foods from their origins. And they were all melanated people. Okay, so I'll continue. The collective trauma is slavery. So with that being said, this is why we have oftentimes some issues keeping it together, because the collective trauma is something that is painful to remember. As I read Elder's note yesterday, or article on her, and she said that growing up, her great grandmother was enslaved, but the family wouldn't talk about it because the children of slaves or enslaved individuals were ashamed of that status. And so a lot of the information was buried along with the hurt and the pain. So today, the 23rd of August, marks this year's International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. It is in honor of a profound stand taken by a group of people in history that set in motion the eventual abolishment of the slave trade. And this is from AnswerAfrica.com. It says the stand in question took place on the night of the 22nd to the 23rd August of 1791. Men and women who had been sold into the slave trade banded together and revolted against the system to obtain freedom and independence for Haiti, which was Santo Domingue, Haiti. Of course, the freedom was not gained on the same night, but rather in 1804. What's that? That's 8, 9, 10, some like 13 years later. But that uprising became, or 14, yeah, 14 or 13 years later, it became a historic turning point in the history of the slave trade. Abolishment as evidenced by the world's celebration of this day. It greatly impacted the establishment of universal human rights, a treasure that, although not perfect, we can be grateful for to an extent. It goes on to say, UNESCO Director General Emunah Bakwa, in marking this year's celebration, had this to say: the courage of these men and women has created obligations for us. UNESCO is marking the International Day for Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its abolition to pay tribute to all those who fought for freedom in their name, to continue teaching about their story and values therein. The history of the slave trade and slavery created a storm of rage, cruelty, and bitterness that has not yet abated. Hence race issues, hence police brutality, hence economic situation, hence moral situation, hence spiritual situation. It is also a story of courage, freedom, and pride in newfound freedom. All of humanity is part of this story in this transgressions and good deeds. It would be a mistake and a crime to cover it up and forget. And I could almost guarantee that this Emunah Bakwa, I'm gonna go look her up. I don't think she's melanated, but I'm gonna go look her up before I say that. Let me, all right, let's pause. I'm gonna get a picture right now, and let me see that someone, who is this person? Who is saying that it would be a mistake and a crime? Emunah Bakwa. Okay, let me check out who this UNESCO. Let me look her up. All right, Quill. I will show you her picture. I told you I could almost guess who's saying this, and I'm going to show you who's saying this right now. So, this individual is saying that to forget what happened, the uprising in Haiti, who right now Haiti is catching it to a large degree, and oftentimes people are ignorant of the history of Haiti and not understanding a lot of the propaganda campaign that went against Haiti for what they did. When you look at the history, Haiti was one of the richest, what's the word I'm looking for, islands in the Caribbean during that time, because Haiti was where they first initially found gold. Haiti was where a lot of times they first came to, and it had a lot of rich ports. And when you look at the free people of color in Haiti, as well as the enslaved, free people, it had enslaved individuals. And we read about that, or I read about it in another book, More Than Chattel. And so you will understand the history of Haiti, that when Haiti rebelled, Haiti was told that they had to pay reparations to France. Dig that. So France was the one who enslaved them. They're the ones who were profiting off their labor. And when Haiti rebelled, they said, okay, cool, you can have your freedom, but now you owe me. And this is what led Haiti into being one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, because of this rebellion that we're hearing. Also, the conversation, and I'm quite sure we have historians out there, so definitely chime in on this. You had those in America who did not want you to speak to Haitians, who did not want that spirit of rebellion to transfer. And when I was growing up, and my parents are from Jamaica, there was a stigma on Haiti. That stigma wasn't, because remember, everybody's coming on these ships, so why did Haiti get this stigma? And it even was so that when I grew up and I went to school, there were Haitians who at that time, it was not cool to say you were Haitian. When you see Fugees, refugees, Jean-Claude, when you see Lauryn Hill, when you see all of these people coming out, and you see this conversation of being Haitian at a time when it wasn't cool to say you were Haitian. Because there was a stigma on Haiti. There was a stigma on the Caribbean, as there was a stigma on the Caribbean as a whole as well. My father would tell me stories that when they first came to America, he was a teenager, they would make fun of them. This is before reggae music was big and everybody loved reggae music. It was a stigma. They would call you tree monkeys and coconut boy and all kind of crazy stuff like this. But Haiti had it worse. Even amongst those in the Caribbean, we were taught that Haiti was like Haiti. But when I grew up and began to understand the history of Haiti, like the woman said here, it would be a crime to forget or to try to cover up why it came to this. The propaganda is real, but I'm going to continue. She says, through its project, The Slave Route, UNESCO intends to find in this collective memory the strength to build a better world and to show the historical and moral connections that unite different people. Indeed, slavery is an irreversible part of our history that cannot be ignored away. Hence, the Lev Project, hence January 1, hence Ataya the Emunah Yisrael taking the long break to process all of this and try to find a way to get more strength to come back to continue so that we don't complain that we don't know much about it or we want it to go away. At the same time, complaining about the symptoms that have become, like she said, that have come out of this irreversible part of history. We cannot turn around from it. We have to go through it. Lastly, it says, to learn from the bravery of people who buckled against the system and determined to build together a better world is a task that falls on each and every one of us equally, and one that we must pick up with the same bravery. And then they're going to say, Happy International Day for the Remembrance of Slavery or Slave Trade and its Abolition. Use your freedom for something great today. And this day, I use the Most High given freedom to come back and have the conversation. Like I said, I was tired. Then this is what happens when you begin to address a lot of these heavy conversations. You get tired. And so it's good to preserve your mind and preserve your spirit and to renew your spirit by taking a step back. It's okay. It's okay. You're human. And so, like I said, I went back to a craft that I used to do a long time ago. I wanted to start a clothing line a long time ago. I know I had put up some stuff and I was sourcing some clothing. And someone said to me, you know, that's nice, but it's always better when it comes from your own hands. And that stuck with me. It was one comment, so I don't think we don't see the comments a lot of times. And the truth is that when I began to pick up my crochet needle, because I don't have my industrial with me, but I do have a crochet needle. And when I began to pick it up, I felt relaxed. And then the babies are like, Mommy, you know, you're going crochet crazy. And I began to crochet so much because and I looked it up. One day I got up and I'm like, Emunah, what is this feeling? You know, what is this relaxed feeling? And I looked it up, and sure enough, needlework, whether it be knitting, yarn, crochet, you know, needlework, they said has a relaxing feeling, not only feeling, an effect. Because they say it's akin to meditation because you're counting and it's a continuous movement of your hand. And you see my hand like right now, I want to just grab my needle and just start doing it. And so I just started sharing it, and people are like, you know, what are you doing? Where is it available? How can I get it? And so out of the Lev Project, it was rebirth because it has always been there. If you look back in the days, it's always been there, but it's a rebirth of another way. And your thing may not be this. Your thing may be painting, which I do as well, but it can get, you know, expensive. You keep buying your paint and your canvases. So this is an inexpensive way for me. Again, find your way in which to express yourself. Making money is cool. Sharing information is cool. Enlightening people is cool. Meaning, it's something that we need to do. Self-preservation is necessary. It's optimal. You have to preserve your mind, your heart, because we are crying out against injustice. We are trying to right the wrongs, but you also have to, like they say, this is one of my favorite analogies, on the plane, put your oxygen mask off. So if you feel that you're losing your will. If you feel that you need to stop for a minute, do that. You know, I was looking at, and the Most High rest him, during my little hiatus, I saw the passing of many people, namely Dr. Sabies, and I began to just watch and watch. And you know, when someone is from this plane, and let me just into the remembrance again, when somebody leaves this plane, and as he has done, touched so many people's lives, and put his imprint on so many people, his thoughts and his ideas and his work. Like the woman just said, a crime would be, because we learn a little bit from everybody. I'm not saying to exalt anyone and put them, but you learn from people's lives. And you learn that he took what he was given and he shared it. But as I was watching some of the last days that he had, one of the videos in which he said that something went awry with his business in 2014, and him, Dr. Sabies, the one who has brought so much healing for over 50 plus years, along with others, to the community. And when he said that he forgot to take care of himself for 2 years, and that his health, and I'm going to go look for the video because people are going to be like, oh, sister, where you thought of that? This was out of his own mouth. This is not hearsay. It resonated with me because that was the vibration that I was on. That sometimes people who are about healing, caretakers, empaths, people who feel other people's pain, like literally you could feel. Some people be like, yo, I feel sorry for you. Other people take on that pain and internalize it. When you do that, or if you're that type of person and you have that type of spirit, and you don't take time to preserve you, then you just negated the whole process, because you're not going to be here to continue to extend that. So when I heard the elder say that at a certain point he forgot about him, during a time that I said, you know what, I'm like, wow, that was confirmation. And many condolences go out to him, his family, as well as all the families right now that has mourned through this summer of 2016. This summer of 2016, like so many other summers that came before, and years that have came before, so much pain has been repetitively inflicted upon the mind, the spirit, and the consciousness. Henceforth, this is why I say solonomics, for me, is very important, because money cannot take away that pain. I'm all about entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship cannot take away that pain. You have to be in touch with you and your soul and your experience, and do the work and find ways, conduits, avenues to transmute. One of which I like is sharing. One of which what has reignited is my needlework. And this is one of the pieces I did. I guess when I come on, I'll show you guys some of the pieces that I've done. And somebody kept pushing me, where are the prices, Emunah? Where's the this? And I was like, nah, not yet, not yet, not yet. So finally, I put together what was being asked of me. I'll put the link there as well. And like I said, that's a byproduct. When you begin to love what you do, it's no longer about trying to convince anybody. It's like an artist. I was watching, I'm in that mode, and I guess I've been going for a while, so bear with me. I was watching Tupac and Left Eye, because I went from Dr. Sabies, and then they was talking about Tupac. You know how YouTube is, it's like a wormhole, right? So I was on Dr. Sabies, and they were asking him about his experience with Left Eye. So I went to a Left Eye documentary that I never saw, which was her documentary that she was going back and forth to Honduras, and the experience and the soul awakening that she was having. From there, I went to Tupac. And what they said about him was that his work ethic was so real that he produced not for necessarily the people. He produced because he had that much to pour out of him. That he had so much, his catalog was so extensive that people were like, wow, you have this much music unreleased. And that's when you have tapped into transmuting your pain, your hurt, your message, and the people will catch up. Do you understand? Some people say, I told somebody, I'm in downtime, and they told me, I can't tell Emunah because you're still producing. And the reality is, I'm not producing. I'm producing because I have to get it out. And sometimes I produce in word. Sometimes I produce in deed. Sometimes I produce in projects. Sometimes I produce in books. This book was last year. Solonomics 101. But I had another book before it. So I said, let me get that book out because that's the one I did with my daughter, my brother, my keeper. I said, let me get that one out and give it some time to breathe before I bring another one. And so personally, and those who are inside at their homes and your producers, you understand this. And it's okay. It doesn't make you better or worse than someone else. It just makes that this is how you operate. So I found this really cool yarn. Now I'm into yarn talking. Again, it's all connected. This is Slavery Remembrance Day and a little bit of welcome back because I've been quiet for a little bit. So this is what I'm working on. I found that I love this yarn color. I'm bugging out right now, right? This yarn color, when I saw it in the store, I'm like, I'm going to make a skirt. So I've been making tops and I've been making hats. Basically, I'm going to make a skirt and I'll let you guys know when I'm done. I'm going to work on it some more. So today, the 23rd, I like what it says in the end. It says this in the article and it's worth rereading or echoing their sentiments. It says here in the end, it says, use your freedom for something great today. And I would add to that, yes, use your freedom for something great today. Use your freedom for something great this week. Use your freedom for something great for the rest of the year. And use it responsibly. Use it wisely. You cannot forget. Learn. If you don't know about the history of the Haitian rebellion, go read about it. Watch a documentary if you have a little issue reading and ease your way into reading because there's a lot of things in the books and in oral traditions that are not in documentaries. And so when you see Haitians, it was so real. Let me just say this. The spirit was so real that when I went to college, we had, all the time in college, you have the Black Students Association. And then you had the Caribbean, whatever college, oftentimes it would have a Caribbean association. My college was so real that they had the Black Student Association, the Caribbean Association, Student Association, and then they had the Club Creole. That the Haitians was like, yo, you know what? We're going to have our own. We're in the Caribbean, but we want our own. And I always would be like, yo, what's good with Club Creole? Because they had an air of them, an air about them. But when you began to converse and have conversations and understand that on top of the slavery, on top of all of that, on top of all of what they went through, there was also the stigma, the added stigma. You see, and I just watched the documentary, and it was a Haitian young man who wrote the documentary and filmed it. His father, I believe, is German, and his mother is Haitian. And I have to go back and look and see if I can find the documentary. But I was just watching that. That's when I go into documentary crochet mode, crazy, just wiring down mode. But he was speaking about the two sides of Haiti. He was talking about the culture of Haiti, that which you do not see, concerning the history of the Haitian rebellion as well as today. And so with that said, hopefully you'll go out, you'll read a little bit more, you'll educate yourself a little bit more. Pop culture, okay. Distraction, distraction, distraction. If you're one of the people out there who asks why, you have questions, why is it this way? You need to get into this history to understand what has been done, what is being done, and what will be done if we don't learn and from our mistakes, fix them, and heal. So with that said, my name is Emunah Yisrael. This is Solonomics 101. I have broken my silence on my hiatus concerning videos such as this, and I just want to thank you for bearing with me and allowing me to get all of the information out, and for everything that I said concerning, I'm going to try to go back, try to go back and find all of the links and put them in the description box. So with that, be great today. Have a great day.